This is Change Radio News, and the news read by Shamiso Sibanda. And now for the stories making the headlines. Fadzai Mahere tests positive for coronavirus. The coup announcer SB Moyo dies. Dr. Madzore bemoans government's inaction on coronavirus as people perish. And finally, Joe Biden is inaugurated as Mr. Trump leaves the White House. And now for the news in detail. The MDC Alliance Secretary for Information, Fadzai Mahere, who on Monday was released from jail, has tested positive for coronavirus. Fadzai Mahere is out on bail for trumped-up charges premised on a non-existent law. Fadzai Mahere was arrested after tweeting the story of a woman who allegedly was assaulted by a police officer. Deputy Communications Secretary Clifford Hlatswayo spoke to Change Radio on the issue.
The People's National Spokesperson Advocate Fadzai Mahere has announced that she tested positive for COVID-19 after spending days in custody. The regime, through these illegal pre-trial persecutions to pro-poor voices, has a clear intention of exposing opponents to deadly pandemic. We are deeply concerned as the People's Party about the health and safety of our comrades who are in incarceration. Comrade Honorable Sikala, Hopu Chingono, Alan Moyo, Last Mahengahama, Tungamire Madzore, and all political prisoners who are being persecuted by this illegal or illegitimate regime. We say no to state capture. They are using the police, they are using the courts to arrest and illegally detain activists and human rights defenders. COVID-19 is real. Let's fight it. Let's do it together, and together we can. We continue to demand for better health care for all Zimbabweans, and a living wage, as well as a better working condition for all the frontline workers. Zambia's government must come to terms and work towards achieving this, not to invest in the persecution of progressive voices.
SB Moyo, the soldier who announced the coup that ousted former president of Zimbabwe, Robert Gabriel Mugabe, has died. The former Minister of Foreign Affairs succumbed to COVID-19 on Tuesday night. The MDC A has sent its sincere condolences to the former minister's family, and this is what the MDC A had to say.
Today, the MDC Alliance has sent a message of condolences to Gwarazimba family and Moyo family on the passing on of Dr. Gwarazimba, who was the Manicaland provincial minister, and SB Moyo, who was the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade. They succumbed to coronavirus. This pandemic has ravaged the world with no discrimination. It has become a global challenge. We call upon all Zimbabweans to exercise great caution and abide by the World Health Organization's guidelines on preventing further spread of this virus. We must wash our hands, we must wear our mask always, we must always practice social distancing. This message was published by the communications desk of the MDC Alliance.
Dr. Madzore, the MDC Alliance Secretary for Health, is urging the government to do more on COVID-19 and to start thinking about a vaccine rollout. He says this is at a time when at least 50 Zimbabweans are dying every day. Speaking to Change Radio, this is what he had to say.
The government of Zimbabwe is really not ready yet for a COVID-19 vaccine rollout. We don't see any evidence, no stakeholder consultations, no efforts for procurement of the vaccine. We are not aware of any budgetary allocation for the vaccine. The rate-limiting step in the COVID-19 vaccine rollout is actually the procurement of the vaccine. The wealthier countries have already placed their orders, and they've snatched away all the best vaccines available on the market. We will probably get the bottom of the range vaccines as time goes on, probably from donations. The donation that has already been given to Africa is only a few million doses, and that won't go very far in a country with 1.3 billion people. Government must already start putting in place mechanisms of distribution of the vaccine, deciding who is going to be vaccinated first, and making pronouncements and raising people's awareness, raising people's hope, and showing that they are in fact ready to roll out a vaccine. At the moment, there is not such a pronouncement. Health workers should be getting excited. The elderly, those with comorbidities, they should be getting excited right now from government pronouncements about whom they are going to vaccinate first when we get our first few million doses. This has not happened. In terms of physical rollout, once the vaccine comes, I think we are set and ready. We've got the health workers, we've got the institutions, we've got the logistics, and I think that will be an easy step. Procurement first.
Meanwhile, President Nelson Chamisa has reiterated that the ZANU-PF regime was weaponizing COVID-19 against its opponents. He said this whilst he was commenting on the status of the national spokesperson Fadzai Mahere, who tested positive after being incarcerated for 7 days on frivolous charges. However, in her narration of her persecution, Advocate Mahere said, and I quote, "Ours must always be a story of hope, of citizens who, knowing how ruthless and repressive this regime is, chose courage over inaction," close quote. She also added that she remains hopeful that one day the sun will set on the justice system in Zimbabwe. Residents in Bulawayo's high-density suburbs are finding it difficult to access the city's town as there is heavy police and army presence barring the movement of people, especially the informal traders. Speaking to Change Radio, Bulawayo provincial spokesperson Sweet Chirodza had this to say.
Yes, I'm in the middle of Bulawayo right now, Bulawayo city center, where there is police and army presence, and very few people are in town. It's so much unlike the time when there was no lockdown. What is sure is that hospitals, going by media reports, are also now a source of infection, and people in the high density suburbs find it difficult to access town, and people who are most affected are vendors who make a living through selling their wares, and also people that are involved in the informal sector. Right now, town is largely quiet, and there is very little business.
And in other news, the city of Gweru has been hit hard by the floods, and most families have been evacuated to community halls and are receiving basic needs from the MDC Alliance. In his appeal for donations, Gweru Mayor, His Worship Josiah Makombe, said,
the city of Gweru has been hard hit by the flash floods which took place some 3 days ago. areas that are low-lying, like Nashville, Riverside, Mtapa Extension, Woodlands, Ascot Infill, Tin Shell, and Mambo have been hard hit. Most families have been affected, and we have managed to evacuate more than 30 families that we are housing at our community halls. And the situation is very bad because the rains are still raining, and we expect more people to be affected, and they will need to be evacuated to safer places. And the challenges that we now have is that all those who have been evacuated need blankets and food, as well as some sanitizers and masks, so that where they are, there is no spread of COVID-19. So this is the challenge that we have as a city as of now.
The Masvingo Province MDC A Youth Secretary General has bemoaned the lack of seriousness from ZANU-PF, which continues to hold large gatherings in the province despite the spike in coronavirus fatalities in the province. Speaking to Change Radio, this is what he had to say.
Zita rangu naitwa Gilbert Mtubuki, ndiri kansela kuchirezi zvakare ndiri secretary general wechidiki muMasvingo province. MuMasvingo province nekuchirezi hatisati tagadzirira government haisati yava ready kuti tirwisane nechirwere cheCovid-19. Manesi edu haana magloves, haana maprotective clothes. Vanhu vatozivi kuti kunoteswa COVID ndekupi, government hatisi kuita. Hatingati ma-awareness campaign okuudza vanhu kuti zvakakoshereko kuti munhu ambonoteswa kuti ane COVID here kana kuti haana, plus munhu aenda kuquarantine. Government hatisi kukwanisa kumaousted nechikafu nezvimwe zvingadiwa munhu ari munguva iyoyo yokuti anenge akangozvivarira mumba. Saka vanhu vanopedzera vobuda mudzimba umo munyangwe munhu achivangwa vari paquarantine, zvinoita kuti chirwere chedu chispread. Uyezve vakuru vehurumende nevakuru veZANU-PF havasi kukwanisa kurespecta atingati maregulation akaitiwa kuti chirwere chisanyanya kutekeshera nenyika. Vanga vakaungana kurufu kwavanhu ava kwavari more than 30, vachisvika kuma100 nezuro vaiva nemusangano wavakaita vachigova minda weZANU-PF kwati 18 uku. Vanga vane more than 200 vanhu vaiva pagungano iroro. Vanhu ivavo vasina kuita social distance, vasina kuisa mamaski. Saka shuwa tine dambudziko guru kuno kuchiredzi nekuMasvingo, nenyaya yekuti vakuru vehurumende nevakuru veZANU-PF ndo vanototanga kutyora yatingati maregulations akaisiwa kuti chirwere chinyanye kutekeshera. Saka tine basa apa muzvipatara, hamuna zvikwanisiro. Tine vanhu vataruza vawanda muMasvingo province nemuchiredzi nokuda kwechirwere ichi cheCovid-19.
And now for our COVID-19 statistical update. Zimbabwe to date recorded 28,675 cases with 18,110 recoveries and 825 deaths. Now for sports news. In Premier League matches played on Tuesday, Leicester are now on top of the English Premier League table after beating Chelsea by 2-0. And West Ham United beat West Bromwich 2-0. In news reaching Change Radio now, Mr. Joe Biden has been inaugurated as the 46th President of the United States of America. Also taking oath today was the first ever woman and also the first person of color to be Vice President Kamala Harris. Former Presidents Bush, Obama, and Clinton graced the colorful occasion, which was held in accordance with COVID-19 regulations. Most people watched virtually, and there was social distancing at the function. Dignitaries were wearing masks. And to end the news bulletin, here are the headlines once again. Fadzai Mahere tests positive for coronavirus. The coup announcer SB Moyo dies. Dr. Madzore bemoans government inaction on coronavirus as people perish.